Hey everyone, welcome back to What the Film School. I'm Haley and today is story time. I want to start a new series on this channel called Storytime, where I share with you stories from things that I have learned from film school. So these will be stories about disasters or successes that I've had throughout my last 4 years, what I learned from them, and what you can do to avoid them in the future if you're hoping to be a filmmaker. So to start off this new series, I'm going to unfortunately have to tell you a very unfortunate story, but I think you'll find it very helpful if you're looking to make your first short film. So let's get into it. This story takes place my sophomore year of college. As some of you who have been watching me for a few months may know, I transferred into NYU my sophomore year from a state school that I was going to. So the way that NYU does it, if you're coming in as a transfer, especially if you're going into film production, film television production, you need to take required classes before you actually start on the regular semester, which would be fall semester, beginning of the year, with everyone else. Freshman year students had to take X required courses, and I had some credits that could make those up already. But sophomores at Tisch had to take these specific classes called Sight and Sound. It was between freshman and sophomore year, so that summer I had to move to New York City and start taking one of those Sight and Sound classes ahead of time, so I decided to sign up for Sight and Sound filmmaking. So what ended up happening, I took my Sight and Sound over the summer, and then since you're only required to take 2 Sight and Sound classes your sophomore year, I took the next one beginning of fall, which was the first semester, and then come spring semester I had already fulfilled that requirement, which somehow made me eligible for the next level up, which was intermediate, which I didn't realize until the first day of class that I signed up that the intermediate course was actually really supposed to be for juniors and seniors, but they let me in anyway. And I thought, I'm gonna be gung-ho about this and I'm just gonna do it. What's the point in delaying the next step if I'm gonna be going to that class anyway at some point? So, little sophomore year me, this was only my 3rd semester, spring semester like I said, I was entering this class that I had no idea what I was getting myself into. That's where our story really begins. Intermediate level at Tisch basically is a film production course that allows you to take the whole semester planning, shooting, editing, scripting, getting cast, crew, all of it for one single 10-minute short film. Doesn't sound that hard, does it? Because you just grab your camera, a few people, you go shoot it. So after a couple weeks into this course, they had someone come in to run over all the paperwork. Yes, all the paperwork. I'm talking like 12 sections of this thing that they call the production book, and everything had to be filled out to a T. And of course they ran over every little single piece of paperwork in one day, and I was trying to feverishly take notes, and I was like, oh my god, this is so much to do, blah blah blah. And it felt overwhelming from the start, but again, of course I was trying to be positive, and I said to myself, you know what, you can do it, you can take on this challenge, you'll be fine. We were given all the instructions, and then we were put into crews. So everybody in the class was kind of divided up into like groups of 5 or 6 people, and those would be kind of your go-to people for the class, and then outside of the class you could also hire more crew if need be, which is definitely needed in this situation. My crew actually did have a couple other transfer students in it, so we were kind of figuring it out together. So I think after a couple weeks, someone had told me, oh, you're gonna need a producer. Someone that I knew had connected me with a guy who I knew through some other connection that was gonna help me produce, so he automatically signed on, which was really great. And then a few weeks later I was connecting with someone else who was producing someone else's film, and then he agreed to produce mine, so there I was with 2 producers. And I was like, okay, cool. So I had my script already, I had 2 producers, what more could I need, right? Well, the next stage of production is obviously to start locking things down, like your cast and your crew and other people and your location. Big deal. So I was going about all this just, again, still not really understanding what the protocol was here, and I was trying to find myself a location. So the particular location that I needed for my short film was a middle school with a parking lot. Now, I was going to NYU, and I was living in the city, and there were no middle schools with parking lots because New York City doesn't have any above-ground parking lots. So that posed the first problem. I started doing some research, and I found a college out in Staten Island that had everything that I needed, and it actually had a few other movies shoot there. So I thought, perfect. So I went out there, it seemed positive, I got verbal confirmation from the woman who was handling all of the media production, and I was starting to be a little bit more relaxed because things were starting to come together just a little bit more and a little bit more. People were telling me, oh, you're fine, like you've got weeks and weeks to go, because I was shooting towards the end of the semester, so I felt like, okay, I've got I've got all that squared away. I can just, I'll take care of this next week, or I'll take care of that next week, and it'll get done, right? It'll get done. Then things started going a little downhill, very slowly, and then all of a sudden, very gradually, it started to get closer to the time I was shooting, and I was missing some key elements. So remember that production book that I mentioned a little while back? Yeah. Turns out that production book had to be approved by multiple people within Tisch. Now that's the thing, when you're making an intermediate versus one of the sight and sound films, sight and sound, you can go out with your equipment, shoot almost anything you want, as long as it's a few minutes long and it's not hurting anybody, etc., etc. Intermediate is a lot more strict with it. Basically, they were saying that you have to get safety approval, you have to get production approval, you have to get your professor's approval, you have to get all these things approved, you have to get your insurance, and yada, yada, yada. It was really it was legit. I mean, it's good to throw yourself into that as a film student to really see hey, this is how much work and how much time it takes. It was getting closer and closer. Maybe it was 2 weeks before I was supposed to shoot, and my location wasn't signing the location agreement due to insurance purposes. And then one of my producers dropped out because honestly, I don't even remember, because I think I just shunned him from my life because I've never talked to him since. But I did have a second producer who, could have probably been doing more than he was. And literally the only thing that was waiting was the location. And I had got my crew together, I got everything, I got my equipment, it was all set. A week later, my second producer dropped out. And then a few days later, it was time for shooting. You know how I said my location wouldn't sign the location agreement without the insurance? Well, it turns out the people at Tisch who were supposed to approve my project did not give me approval on the day I was shooting, because they said without that location agreement, I couldn't get my insurance. It was 3 hours until I was supposed to arrive on location, and I had emailed the location really quick, and I said, if you sign this right now, I promise I'll get you the insurance. Thank God they had signed it real fast and sent it back immediately. But then when I showed it to the production office at Tisch, who was supposed to approve and sign off and give me the insurance, they said, you should have done that 2 weeks ago. And because I didn't do it 2 weeks ago, they didn't approve it. They shut my production down. I had to sit there with a friend at school and hand email and call everybody to tell them that the production was off. All because there was this one piece of paperwork that I did not fill out. But on a somewhat lighter note, a few people were understanding, and they did give me the option to shoot things a couple weeks later. So I took them up on that offer, and, everyone was like, okay, I can probably do it on this and such date. I can probably, be there on your set. That's fine. I did have a few people drop, which was understandable, but I think all my main actors were able to make it, which was really, really promising. But then came the location again. So I immediately emailed back my location and said, because of this issue, I'm going to have to push back 2 weeks. Can I still have this location in another 2 weeks? A few minutes later, they got back and said, we're all booked. No. And that was it. I lost my location for good. I never heard from them again. I didn't even respond, I don't think, because I was just in shock. I was so upset. I tried not to get myself too worked up about it, because I thought, this is something that I can work through. And even if it's not 100% the movie that I want it to be, it can still be something. Technically, I still had to shoot a movie or scenes from the movie, whether or not it was the complete project, just so that I could finish the class and have something to show. What I ended up doing was booking a room at the soundstage that we have at Tisch. And again, 2 weeks later, I got a few friends together, my crew, everything, my cast, and I shot a couple scenes, and that was it. Although, like I said, I was upset that I couldn't shoot the entire thing, and that, all these things went wrong, especially since I just really ultimately didn't know what I was doing. Now that I look back on it, it made me realize that very few people are good at doing something for the first time. And although I had been shooting little projects and stuff, something that was on this big of a scale was really difficult. It was a lot for me to take on, and I do commend myself for trying to take it on and getting as far as I did and trying to salvage a little bit that I could. Another thing that I keep close to me is just how important it is to have people that you trust on your set. Because, I think this was also a problem since I was really new to NYU and I didn't know a lot of people. The producers that had signed on because of whatever reason, I don't trust them, and I wouldn't trust them, and it is so important to have someone that you trust working for you and working with you too. That takes me to the end of this story, and again, a few more takeaways for you out there who's watching, who might be going to film school as well, might be thinking about going to film school and doing the production track like this one. Similar schools will have this kind of thing where you'll be doing a class where you basically have to produce one movie per semester or whatever it might be. Just keep in mind that you should find as many people as you can that are going to be on your side, that are going to help you. And also, oh my God, this is like the #1 thing, and I'm still so bad about this no matter how many times I learn this lesson, but just don't procrastinate. And if you don't understand something or you think you are a little clueless on something, go get help, especially from your professors. Everyone is going to make mistakes, and hopefully by hearing this, this is something that maybe you can avoid a little bit, or if you're going to be doing a big production, just ease into it, or really just get the help of someone who's done it before, and that'll just alleviate so much of the pain for you. But for the final lesson for this video and this whole entire story, and this is something that I hear from a few other people as well from film school who have kind of experienced similar things. When you're directing and producing the film yourself, it's so much harder. Because when my producers dropped out, I took on the producer's role, and I was in over my head because it was too much work for one person. So if you can, if you're making your own short film, always try to hire a couple extra people to take on the producer's position. You can produce it yourself too, but it is much harder without extra help. That is the end of my story officially. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you like this and want to see more in this series of me telling stories from film school, then just give this video a thumbs up. And also don't forget to subscribe, turn on the bell notification, and as always, check my website, w2filmschool.com, where I'll try to post a few more blog posts, and maybe I'll post a few extra little story tidbits from my life at film school. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye!